My husband of 20 years had been keeping another woman for 15 years. To force me to step aside, he gave me only 1,000 yuan per month for living expenses. To prevent the two of them from getting their way, I stubbornly raised our 2 sons alone. In the end, I met my demise from overwork. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the day I first argued with him about divorce. Both sons voluntarily asked to stay with their father. I knew it. My sons had also been reborn. When I opened my eyes once more, everything went dark for a moment before gradually clearing. I stood frozen for a good 10 seconds, staring at the mess before me, before I finally remembered where I was. Isn't this the house Ezra Zhao and I bought when we got married? Later, he secretly sold the house and kicked me and our 2 sons out, forcing us to rent a place. We ended up in a shabby ground floor apartment in an urban village, where we lived for over a decade. I touched the wound on my forehead, trying to recall which day this was. On this day in my previous life, I first discovered Ezra Zhao was seeing someone else, and in my devastation, I fought with him. He pushed me, and my forehead hit the coffee table, knocking me unconscious. I was lucky to survive. When I woke up, I insisted on a divorce, but all his relatives persuaded me to let it go, saying, "Just bear with it. Isn't this how every family lives?" My elder sister from my maiden family couldn't stand seeing me like this and said she would come to another province to take me back, assuring me there would always be a place for me at home. I was too angry to back down and insisted on holding my ground as the lawful wife, refusing to let that scumbag have his way. But my stubbornness didn't make their lives any less comfortable. Ezra Zhao was shameless enough to secretly sell the house and settle down with the other woman in another city. Even having a child together, returning to my hometown every few years, only to be met with indifferent remarks. After his mother's death, he cared about nothing at all. The happier their lives became, the more determined I was to stay in my place, causing them the greatest discomfort. She raised 2 sons alone until adulthood, only to pass away from illness at an early age. During the year I was hospitalized, Ezra Zhao spent over 200,000 to send his illegitimate child, who was still in elementary school, abroad for a study tour, yet refused to pay my son's college living expenses. At this thought, I got up from the floor and slowly walked to the mirror. Seeing the wound on my forehead where I had been hit, I curled my lips into a smile. Not enough. I looked around, picked up a glass of water nearby, and smashed it against my wound again. Looking at the freshly spilled blood, I finally smiled with satisfaction, with blood still dripping from my head. I ran out of the house in a panic, utterly helpless. This time, I won't foolishly stay trapped in the fire pit waiting to die. As soon as I stepped outside, I ran into an elderly neighbor from the same community. I saw her and screamed in panic, "Help! Help! My husband is going to kill me." The auntie was no pushover. She shouted, "What?" and pulled me into her arms. Don't worry, he wouldn't dare. I'll call the police right away. Tell me what happened." Noticing the mix of concern and barely concealed excitement for gossip on her face, I quickly buried myself in her arms and cried, careful not to let my rising smirk show. "I can't go on. That bastard cheated on me and said I should make way for that woman, or he'd kill me. I gave the Zhao family 2 sons and served him for so many years, yet I never got a single kind word from him all year round, and now he actually wants to buy a house for that woman outside." I cried and beat my chest in despair, my face smeared with a mix of tears and blood. It was as pitiful as could be. I had no doubt about the neighbor's ability to spread the story. She would surely tell it even more vividly than I did. Soon, the police arrived. My eyes lit up as I grabbed the officer's hand and wailed again, "Comrade, you must help me." The female officer first took me to have my wounds treated briefly, then brought me back to the police station to take my statement. Before long, the summoned Ezra Zhao appeared in the police station lobby with a dark expression. The moment he saw the officers, he immediately put on an ingratiating smile. "Comrade, my apologies, it's just a marital quarrel, nothing serious. Sorry for the trouble." The young female officer helping me with the statement was indignant and slammed the table angrily. "You know perfectly well whether it was an argument or domestic violence." As for him, he acted with a sense of impunity. I also knew that for marital disputes, Mediation was the primary approach. Ezra Zhao, after finishing the statement, came out bowing and scraping, with an obsequious expression. Yes, I'll definitely change, you're absolutely right to educate me. In a turn, facing me, their expression instantly changed, eyes filled with ferocity. I curled my lips and, in front of everyone, fainted, after completing the examination at the hospital with superb acting skills. I obtained a diagnosis of suspected brainstem injury. I know, the divorce is settled. Ezra Zhao, even when angry, wouldn't dare to touch me now, and we returned home peacefully. What awaits me is a family tribunal. Around 1 o'clock the next afternoon, the entire Zhao family came knocking. As soon as I entered the door, Ezra Zhao's sister, my sister-in-law, saw the bowl in my hand and immediately scowled at me. Dina Lin, my brother works hard to earn money. Keeping you at home is just for cooking and cleaning. Now that we're here, there's not even a bite to eat or a drop of water to drink. In my previous life, they gaslighted me the same way. Before discovering Ezra Zhao's betrayal, he did give me 3,000 yuan every month for household expenses. This 3,000 yuan covered the weekly living expenses for our 2 sons, as well as household necessities like rice, flour, oil, salt, utilities, gas, and social obligations like weddings and funerals. Although I had to budget carefully, it was just enough to get by without being too tight. So I bought into this brainwashing too, believing that everything in the household was supported by Ezra Zhao, but looking back now, everything in the house, from major appliances to daily groceries like rice, flour, and oil, were all discounted items I scrambled to buy, working from dawn to dusk if I hadn't managed the household expenses. Ezra Zhao would have been smoking 50 yuan packs of cigarettes. How could 3,000 yuan possibly be enough, and not a single penny was spent on me? I slurped up the last few noodles from my bowl with a pout, then set the bowl and chopsticks down with a clatter. Wiping my mouth, I said, "Auntie, you didn't even give me a heads up before coming. What was I supposed to cook for you?" I jutted my chin toward the trash can. "And I can't even offer you water. Ezra Zhao smashed everything in the house yesterday. This injury on my head, that's from a cup he threw. Eldest aunt, I only have 3,000 yuan a month to manage this whole household. Last year, when you had your second child, I gave you 200 yuan as a gift, birthdays, my hospital stays. There were plenty of occasions for you to return the favor. Give it back to me now, and I'll go buy groceries for you right away, you." My sister-in-law was so infuriated by my words that she immediately turned her back on me. After playing the villain, Ezra Zhao's mother switched to playing the saint, putting on a look of earnest concern. "Oh, come on, what couple doesn't argue? It was wrong of Ezra Zhao to hit you. But you shouldn't have called the police either. Family matters shouldn't be aired outside the home." In her previous life, she couldn't control the one outside. So she thought I was an easy target and often emotionally manipulated me. She brainwashed me, saying things like how her in-laws were all on my side, and once I endured through it, that woman would have nothing. I sneered. Not only did I say it, but I also had someone come over to check. A commotion arose in the hallway as the neighbor auntie arrived with her old friends in tow. "This is the one. That bastard betrayed me and hit me, hitting his own wife. I wonder how his mother raised him." My mother-in-law's face instantly changed. I laid out yesterday's injury assessment, one photo after another of the bruises. "Shocking to see. None of you try to talk me out of it. I'm definitely getting a divorce. If I don't, I'll sue him." Ezra Zhao was instantly furious. "Fine, let's divorce. I've long wanted out of this marriage." The mother-in-law didn't want them to divorce. She also knew that her son was almost 30. With nothing to his name except a marital home that had drained the family's savings, and that he would never find another fool of a woman as hardworking and uncomplaining as me. "I want to live with grandma." "Me too. I want to go with dad and grandma." The 2 sons had somehow appeared at the doorstep. The 3 of them locked eyes. In that electric moment, understanding flashed between them. "I know, my son has also been reborn, in my previous life." I lived with my 2 sons as if walking on thin ice. Even working 3 jobs day and night wasn't enough to support the lives of 2 children. While other children went on vacations during winter and summer breaks, my 2 kids could only take on part-time jobs during holidays. By the time I was in my teens, during the crucial growth years, the meat at every meal was never enough to satisfy my hunger. I would often wake up at night to eat a few slices of the cheapest biscuits and then gulp down a bellyful of water. In high school, recognizing my potential, my teacher guided my studies and suggested we seek outside tutoring, but with no money at home, despite having the ability to attend a top-tier university, I ended up at an ordinary school. Not to mention, whenever I fell ill with even a minor headache or fever, those times were especially tough to endure, one after another. Incident after incident, how could the 2 sons not hate her? The hesitant mother-in-law, upon seeing her 2 grandsons, immediately beamed with joy. "Ah, my 2 precious grandsons, Grandma hasn't spoiled you for nothing. Divorce, it must be done." The mother-in-law, who had been publicly mocked and put on the spot, was still wavering, but the defection of her 2 grandsons seemed to instantly cleanse her of shame, prompting her to make a firm decision. Ezra Zhao looked at me and smiled smugly, as if to say, see, without me, you have nothing, not even a son." I almost laughed. He has no idea how expensive it is to raise a child. The house wasn't in my name, and I paid for the renovation. When dividing the assets, Ezra Zhao's mother even had the nerve to say, "The house was bought by our Zhao family. At most, we'll give you 30,000. Take it or leave it, or you can just take the furniture." The furniture was nearly a decade old, and my family was out of town. She was certain I wouldn't take it. I'm not going to indulge her. I directly called the neighborhood aunties to come over and take whatever they fancied. For the unwanted items, I had the scrap collector grandpa come and haul them away. Ezra Zhao watched as the furniture was moved out piece by piece, his face turning green with anger. "Dina Lin, you have such a vicious heart." I rolled my eyes at him. "Would leaving my dowry for you and that woman be considered not vicious?" I moved out so the other woman could move in. After the divorce certificate was issued, Ezra Zhao quickly set a wedding date. On their wedding day, my sister from my maternal family also came. Early in the morning, they set off firecrackers on the street and in front of the residential building, with gongs and drums playing. All the neighbors knew Ezra Zhao was getting remarried, so it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. She handed out candy to everyone she met, beaming brighter than flowers. You'd think she was the one getting married if you didn't know better. Baffled passers-by asked for candy to share in the joy, saying, "Something happy at home, congratulations." Grinning from ear to ear, she shoved a handful into their hands. "Yes, something happy. My sister got divorced." With that, she pointed her hand, signaling to look up. She hung a banner on the door that read, "Celebrating my sister's divorce from the heartless Zhao." Celebrating the ex-husband's second marriage, but the newly arrived one refused to keep a low profile and insisted on entering through the main gate of the neighborhood in a bridal sedan chair, only to run into the procession my sister had hired. Seeing her approach, my sister turned and waved her hand, shouting, "Come on, play the music, welcome the new bride." Everyone present understood the situation perfectly well, with the help of the well-informed aunties from the same neighborhood. The onlookers enjoyed the juicy gossip with great relish. The bride was supposed to step out of the sedan chair and cross the fire basin, but Kira Liu refused to show herself. A faint, tearful voice could be heard from inside the sedan, "Go away," as the main character of the event. Ezra Zhao was subjected to piercing stares and pointing fingers from the crowd, utterly humiliated. The 2 sons hugged their grandmother's waist, frowning. "Grandma, Mom is going too far. How could she do this?" From across the street, sitting in my sister's car, I took in everything and couldn't help but feel a lump in my throat. At this moment, I recalled the time before my wedding in my previous life when my sister came to my room, holding my hand with a face full of worry. She said, "Dina, you were such a well-behaved child when you were little. Why won't you listen now? You insist on marrying someone from out of town, and if you get bullied in the future, your family won't be able to help you." Back then, I didn't understand the sorrow in her eyes. Only now do I realize that blood ties are the hardest bonds to sever. Though I've left, the favors I did for my aunts weren't for nothing. They promised to watch over my 2 sons, ensuring they weren't bullied. And to keep me updated regularly, I had just left and hadn't even enjoyed 2 peaceful days at home when my aunt came to vent to me, Dina. That new wife Ezra Zhao married is really not an easy one. She says women are meant to be pampered, not treated like maids. Ezra Zhao has to cook for her every day after work. If he gets off late, they eat out. My aunt was standing up for me, but I actually felt quite happy hearing it. Ezra Zhao's new wife is named Kira Liu. She stopped studying after high school and started working early. She's only 21 this year. Her social circle wasn't high enough to meet any quality men. So when she came across Ezra Zhao, who owns a home, she thought he was a great catch and couldn't wait to marry him. Though Kira Liu isn't drop-dead gorgeous, her youthfulness and coquettish charm make up for it. Ezra Zhao is willing to spoil her and spend money, but he never stops to consider whether his wallet can handle it. He can manage cooking for a week, but there's no way he could keep it up for a month. Especially when I was at home before, I took care of everything without him lifting a finger. How could he possibly endure such hardship now? Sure enough, it wasn't long before my aunt gleefully told me that Ezra Zhao had been going grocery shopping every day lately. He doesn't understand that the best produce requires early morning competition, and the cheapest deals demand perfect timing to snatch up leftovers. Yet he seems to be thoroughly enjoying himself, even updating his social media feed. There he was, strolling through the supermarket with his new wife, their cart filled with snacks, premium fruits, and small portions of organic vegetables neatly wrapped in cling film, a scene of harmony and warmth. With Dina looking blissfully happy, I knew it wouldn't be long before they started arguing. But I never expected their first fight to come so soon. Their first quarrel was overheard by me when our son connected his smartwatch to the phone and left it in the living room. How much can you possibly spend just buying groceries? Isn't 4,000 yuan a month enough for you? Can't you cut back on snacks? Didn't you eat those snacks too? Now you're blaming me. When you married me, didn't you promise to treat me well for a lifetime? Now you're even complaining about me having some snacks. If I'd known it would be like this, I should have just married someone my own age. As she spoke, Kira Liu began to cry. Seeing her tears, Ezra Zhao's heart softened, and he lowered his voice to comfort her. All right, we've been eating out too much this month. Next month, we'll cook at home. You buy the groceries, and I'll do the cooking. Okay. The two of them got back together, all lovey-dovey again. Listening on the phone, I couldn't help but sneer. Two people who've never been weighed down by the daily grind of life, without an ounce of reverence. Life will teach them a lesson soon enough. Not 2 peaceful days had passed before trouble brewed again in Ezra Zhao's household. The money Ezra Zhao gave to Kira Liu was meant to cover all the household expenses. As a result, she thought that the 2 children only needed to prepare a week's living expenses for their stay at the boarding school. But she didn't know that when children returned to the boarding school on Sundays, their families would also prepare extra snacks, fruits, and milk for them to eat between meals. Naturally, the 2 sons didn't mention it to her, nor did they bother Ezra Zhao with this matter. They simply lowered their heads in silence when their classmates curiously asked why they didn't bring any snacks or fruits. When the other children went home and mentioned that the Zhao brothers had no fruits or milk and had to eat others, the parents naturally understood what was going on. The aunties taking their grandchildren out for a walk met Ezra Zhao and half-jokingly, half-admonishingly said, "Ezra, they say a stepmother means a stepfather. If you can't handle it, maybe you should send the 2 kids to their mother." Ezra Zhao got scolded again, and he was utterly annoyed. He was tired of cooking too, so he gave Kira Liu an earful and completely dumped all the household chores on her. Under the guise of not having enough money, he said he would work more overtime, leaving all the household responsibilities to Kira Liu. They brainwashed her again. Look at your girlfriends who are still working in factories, living in dormitories or renting places. None of them have it as good as you. Look at you, living in a big house in the county town, not having to wake up early, just cooking meals. This family has always been good at the game of slapping and then offering a sweet. They used to PUA me, and now they're doing the same to Kira Liu. To put it bluntly, they're just selfish and only care about themselves. Time flew by. And soon it was the new year. In her past life, Kira Liu's obsession was for Ezra Zhao to take her home and have his mother acknowledge her. rather than being without any formal status, now that she had achieved her wish and become the rightful daughter-in-law of the Zhao family. She genuinely considered herself a part of the family and thus more readily accepted their brainwashing and PUA tactics. On New Year's Eve, Ezra Zhao video called me. I took the call. And the ones who appeared were two reluctant sons. Before I could speak, my mother-in-law smiled and said, "Oh, these two kids, it's only right to wish their mom a happy new year. Why the reluctance? It's all my fault for spoiling them. Dina Lin, don't take it to heart." Ezra Zhao also chimed in with feigned seriousness. "Exactly. Zhao Han and Zhao Hao, wish your mom a happy new year, and I'll give you big red envelopes." Watching the smug expressions of Ezra Zhao's family on my phone, I couldn't help but beam with joy. My son's acting is really good. The less close they are to me, the more they integrate into the Zhao family, and the easier it is to turn the Zhao family upside down. My son reluctantly said Happy New Year to me before quickly turning his face away, but the Zhao family thought it was a face-saving gesture and smiled as they bid me farewell, listening to the background voice saying, "Here, 2 kids, 200 each." I also smiled and said goodbye to them. Putting down my phone, I met my mother's disapproving look at the dinner table. She pursed her lips and said, "Ungrateful child, all that love wasted on you." I smiled and picked up a piece of meat for her, soothing her. "All right, they'll understand when they grow up." Then I abruptly changed the subject and asked her, "Is Uncle Liu setting up a factory? Do you want me to go help?" Mother was taken aback. "How did you know?" "Of course I know. In my previous life, my mother also asked me if I wanted to earn some extra money. To be honest, the pay wasn't low. Calculated monthly, it was even higher than Ezra Zhao's salary. But Ezra Zhao didn't agree, believing it was better for me to stay home and take care of the household chores, so I let it go. Little did I know that later, Uncle Liu became prosperous through the factory, which grew larger and larger. The employees who had worked overtime and weathered the tough times with the factory in the early days were all given shares, receiving tens of thousands in dividends every year. Housewives with income all stand tall at home, yet day after day, I listened to Ezra Zhao's nagging. "If you'd been more diligent and gone to work, you'd have dividends by now, and life at home wouldn't be so hard." And after being kicked out by him, surviving on just 1,000 yuan, I was filled with even deeper regret. My mother hesitated. "Uncle Liu did ask, but I think it's too exhausting. There are hardly any workers, each doing the job of 2. It's okay, Mom, I can do it. I want to earn money to support you in your old age," I said with a smile, cutting her off. Compared to the unbearable days of my past life, being away from Ezra Zhao, not having to raise children, and just focusing on earning money by myself feels absolutely amazing. At the start of the year, I returned to Ezra Zhao's city and began working again. Uncle Liu teased me, saying I worked like a starving ghost devouring a meal. I smiled without speaking. He was right. If I had been able to secure this job and have my own income in my previous life, I wouldn't have faced the hardships that followed. Now that I've regained what was lost, which didn't come easily, I naturally cherish it all the more. Time flew by, and the 2 children reached their 3rd year of junior high. This year, Ezra Zhao's mother fell ill. In my previous life, it was also at this juncture that Ezra Zhao and I began living separately. By this time, Ezra Zhao and Kira Liu's interactions no longer bothered to hide from me, even to the point of blatantly making calls and video chats at home. Not only did I have to take care of the household, but I also had to care for my mother-in-law in the hospital, until I finally reached my breaking point, having a falling out with Ezra Zhao. He soon after arbitrarily sold the house and kicked me and our son out. Now, it's Kira Liu's turn to endure all this. Nearly a year has passed, and she has long been worn down by life from a carefree young woman who only needed to enjoy others' support into a resentful wife. Money that barely suffices with careful budgeting, an infuriating stepson who acts like a green tea, pretending to be innocent, and a husband who shirks all responsibilities the moment he comes home. This was not the married life she had envisioned. Now that her mother-in-law is ill, no matter how unwilling she is, she has to attend to her bedside. For 2 people who already disliked each other, being forced to share the same space naturally led to even more conflicts. At this point, Her mother-in-law began to recall my kindness and sent Ezra Zhao to invite me to take care of her for a few days. I was shocked by this family's shamelessness, yet still smiled and agreed. After all, we were once family. It's only right that I help in times of need. A year apart, with good food, drink, and less stress, I've grown rosy-cheeked and visibly healthier. A far cry from how he remembered me. Now, appearing so reasonable, he looked at me with an entirely different expression. Dina Lin. I'm actually starting to regret this now. I smiled as I saw him out, then quickly grabbed disinfectant wipes to scrub my hands where he had touched them, over and over. This guy is jinxed when it comes to wives. Anyone who ends up with him is doomed to bad luck. What a curse. When I arrived at my ex-mother-in-law's hospital room with a thermal lunchbox, she was practically more delighted to see me than her own daughter. Oh my, Dina, come here, come sit down. As I laid out the prepared stew and nutritious meals one by one, the other patients in the room were green with envy. Oh my, is this your daughter? Indeed, one's own daughter is always dearer. She looks much better than that daughter-in-law you brought the other day. I smiled without saying a word, while Ezra Zhao's mother averted her gaze, looking somewhat awkward. I went along with the conversation to ease the tension, saying, I wasn't wrong to call you Mom. That afternoon in the hospital room, she spent the whole time complaining to me. Nothing more than how Kira Liu didn't meet her expectations in every way, how terrible their family life was, and how none of it could compare to me. She's young, in a couple of years, she'll know everything. People are just plain ungrateful. Only after losing something and having a comparison do they remember how good things were before, but at their core, they're utterly selfish and self-serving. The Zhao family is all the same. Back when Kira Liu and Ezra Zhao were fooling around outside, he liked her for her youthful energy. Ezra Zhao's mother adored her son, so even if she had no choice, she could only reluctantly accept it. Now that they've brought her into the family, they find no benefit for themselves. With her usefulness gone, they've grown to despise her. When leaving, Ezra Zhao's mother held my hand, full of regret. I really shouldn't have agreed to let you two separate. Kira Liu enjoyed 2 peaceful days before my son told her I was at the hospital taking care of her. Kira Liu exploded instantly. My son messaged me, urging me to leave quickly. I retreated from the room and hid at a distance to observe. I saw Kira Liu storm into the ward furiously, followed by a loud bang, likely the sound of her knocking over the insulated food container I had left on the table. I've served your Zhao family all these years, and now you regret it. Think Dina Lin is better. Let me tell you, no way. The room erupted again with the sound of things being smashed, giving the onlookers another juicy spectacle. That same day, I received a text from Ezra Zhao asking if I'd be willing to remarry him, if only for the sake of the child. Remarry we will, but not now. Ezra Zhao's mom was so humiliated at the hospital that she couldn't stay any longer and had to transfer, costing yet another sum of money. Kira Liu couldn't possibly go to take care of her either, and to avoid suspicion, I certainly wouldn't go again. At this point, only her 2 eldest grandsons could take turns staying with her for a while after school. They casually mentioned that school required extra tutoring. How could she possibly disagree? The Zhao family's money is now controlled by Kira Liu, who refuses to comply with Ezra Zhao's mother's wishes and flatly rejects them. In Ezra Zhao's eyes, she shows no respect to her parents above and mistreats her children below, completely eroding his feelings for Kira Liu. To force Kira Liu into divorce, he stopped giving her living expenses and continued to frequently beat and scold her. I calculate the time. It's about time to go find her. In the cafe, Kira Liu sat across from me, looking completely different from when I saw her last year. Her hair was tied into a low ponytail hanging down her back, but 2 stray strands fell at her temples, suggesting she had rushed out the door and hastily tied it up. Most strikingly, dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her gaze was dull, nothing like a girl in her early 20s, as if she had aged 10 years overnight. Noticing the hostility in her eyes, I smiled and said, "Actually, we're the same. Both victims deceived by Ezra Zhao. You've realized it by now, haven't you? What he says and what he does are entirely different things. Don't think I'm here to show off or anything. Just look at the Zhao family. Do you really think I have any lingering affection for that mess? I truly had no choice. Both my sons are tied to the Zhaos, and this is just how my life turned out. You're only 22, if you turn back now, your life is still yours to live. You thought you were marrying for love, but look how that turned out. If you get pregnant, your life will be even harder, whether you stay or leave. The Zhao family's property will be split 3 ways. How much do you think your child would really get? Throwing away your whole life for this, it's just not worth it. In her previous life, she got pregnant around this time. If she gives birth to the child, it would mean competition for the inheritance. Kira Liu figured it out. She took the initiative to file for divorce. She came into the marriage with nothing, so naturally, she would leave with nothing. She took the child and demanded 30,000 in emotional damages from Ezra Zhao. I nodded. That's the price. That's the price for a woman abandoned by Ezra Zhao. As a woman myself, seeing Kira Liu's pale and fragile appearance, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy in my heart. Wasting her youth for this family and damaging her own health, it's truly not worth it. After their divorce, Ezra Zhao immediately proposed remarriage. I refused, only agreeing to return to the family but not to remarry. Ezra Zhao, to show sincerity, also temporarily agreed. Day after day, he took charge of grocery shopping, cooking, and household chores. I focused on working hard and taking good care of our 2 sons. In this life, I now have the means to afford the tutoring classes my sons couldn't attend before. Even if they refused, I insisted they go. What I didn't have in my past life, I'll make up for doubly in this one. When spending money on my son, I never ask Ezra Zhao for a single cent. Whether his money goes to groceries or daily expenses, I never interfere. In fact, I sometimes even spend my own money to stock the fridge with good things. Now he's suddenly eager to hand over his finances for me to manage. I still refuse. Now, remarriage and financial control are like a piece of meat dangling in front of him. He'll only run forward if he wants to eat it. Once obtained, he'll start slacking off. Human nature is cheap, and Ezra Zhao is outrageously so. Since the last illness, Ezra Zhao's mother's health has been getting worse. She spends half of every month lying in bed. She won't live much longer. I've been taking care of her by her bedside even more attentively than Ezra Zhao. And she keeps hoping every day that Ezra Zhao and I will remarry soon. Mom, your health is the most important thing. Let's go to the hospital for a checkup. The examination revealed mid to late stage lung cancer. Chemotherapy could cost hundreds of thousands and might not even cure it. While conservative treatment would only give her this year, I went to inquire about commercial insurance, but they clearly stated they don't accept those already diagnosed with illnesses. I ran up and down for the old lady's illness, and everyone saw it. A neighbor aunt saw me and asked in confusion, "Dina, that family treated you like that. Why are you still coming back to jump into the fire pit? Why can't you think clearly?" I smiled without answering. How could they possibly realize that the foolish woman before them, who was wholeheartedly devoted to the in-laws who had hurt her, was actually planning revenge? Even Ezra Zhao was moved. At the dinner table, his face was full of remorse. "Dina Lin, I was too foolish before and couldn't see that you were the only one who truly cared for me. From now on, let's live happily together as a family of 4, okay?" As he spoke with deep emotion, his eyes actually reddened, and tears fell. I watched that crocodile tear and exchanged a glance with our 2 sons, feeling not the slightest ripple of emotion. We all knew he wasn't truly remorseful. He was just afraid that we might abandon him now. Afraid that I, who can make money, am living well on my own. But both my son and I are people who have lived through hell once before, demons clawing our way back from the abyss. How could we possibly soften our hearts because of his few words? The kind are bullied, the tame are ridden. Ezra Zhao's mother passed away as expected. Ezra Zhao and I also got our marriage certificate and remarried. That night, he held me and cried bitterly, confessing his mistakes, but I didn't want to hear any of it. I endured his hypocritical tears and patted his back lightly. "Ezra Zhao, I was so scared when Mom passed away. It was so sudden. After going through so much, we finally have a stable little home. If I suddenly fall seriously ill and it's incurable, that's one thing. But what I fear most is not having the money for treatment. Should we buy some insurance? He found this reasoning quite sound and readily agreed. That weekend, we went to the insurance company and purchased a high-coverage policy. Watching Ezra Zhao finally sign his name on the contract, the weight in my heart was completely lifted at last. From then on, all that was left was to quietly await that day's arrival. According to my son's account, as their university's opening day approached, to save on travel expenses, they chose to take a bus to register. However, the bus was involved in a chain reaction collision on the road, plummeted off a cliff. And there were no survivors. In this life, with the monthly fortune I spent on hiring top-tier private tutors for my son, his academic performance improved by leaps and bounds. He was admitted to a prestigious university. Making up for the regrets of our previous life, I took my son and went ahead first, luring him into the car under the pretense of a family trip. "Hey Ezra Zhao, I've bought your ticket, hurry up and come, our son's only wish after getting into university, and you dare to refuse? No, this is the fastest one available, sleep on the train tonight, and you'll arrive tomorrow. If I don't see you tomorrow, you're in big trouble, I'm telling you." The next day, the three of us gathered in front of the TV and finally saw the news we had been waiting for. The mother and her 2 children wept with joy, embracing each other in tears. Wiping away their tears and looking out the window, they saw the sky had cleared, stretching endlessly without a single cloud. After Ezra Zhao's death, I went to the insurance company to claim the substantial compensation, clean and tidy, with nothing left to investigate. It wasn't until the list of victims was released that my sister-in-law learned the news from the reports. She immediately stormed in, trying to drive me and my son out, shouting that this was her brother's house. Her voice was so loud that neighbors from across the hall and upstairs came out to see what was happening. After hearing her, a young girl rolled her eyes and said, "Miss, do you even know the law? They are the legal first heirs. If you try to kick them out, they can sue you for illegally occupying someone else's property. You know." Oh, I remember her, a few years ago. When the Zhao family divorced Dina and brought in the other woman, wasn't she there too? TSK. I always thought this family was no good. How shameless to act so disgracefully, trying to drive someone out when they're raising 2 of your Zhao family's children. Absolutely disgraceful. I stood in the doorway, smiling at her without saying a word. With so many people chiming in, each adding their own criticism, she was thoroughly humiliated and couldn't hold her head up. In the end, she simply plopped down on the ground, wailing at the top of her lungs and throwing a tantrum. "Why is my life so bitter? My mother worked so hard to raise my brother, and now that she's gone, she left nothing behind. It's all been taken by this poisonous woman. Mom, take me with you." It wasn't until the police arrived that this farce came to an end. To prevent her from coming to pester me again, I quickly sold the house at a low price and took the money to flee far away. 4 years later, my son graduated from a prestigious university and landed a job at a major corporation. I also secured substantial annual dividends by investing early in Uncle Liu's factory. We all have a bright future.